Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked off the human ship onto Station Kepler 442. The metal floors felt cold under her feet. This was humanity's first real visit to the Galactic Council. Everything had to go perfectly. The station was huge. Elena had seen pictures, but being here was different. The walls were made of some kind of blue metal that seemed to glow. Strange symbols were carved into everything. The air smelled like flowers and metal mixed together. Aliens were everywhere. Elena tried not to stare, but it was hard. A group of tall, thin creatures walked by. Their skin looked like glass and made musical sounds when they moved. These were the Zephyrians. Elena had studied them for months. Behind the glass, people came something that looked like a walking mountain. It was covered in thick gray skin with scars all over it. Sharp teeth stuck out of its mouth. This was a Korath warrior. On its back was an axe bigger than Elena's whole body. Fast-moving shadows darted between the other aliens. The Veltar moved so quickly that Elena's eyes could barely follow them. When one stopped, she saw it carried a gun that glowed with purple light. The weapon looked like it could blow a hole through a building. Elena's security team walked behind her. Captain Sarah Chen led the group. Behind her came Marcus, Aisha, Yuki, and David. They all wore simple black clothes, no armor, no big weapons. They looked almost boring compared to all the alien guards around them. A tall creature with bug-like eyes came forward. It had 6 arms and skin that looked like tree bark. This was Representative Theus from the Zephyrian delegation. "Welcome, human ambassador," Theus said. The translator in Elena's ear made the musical sounds into words she could understand. "I am Representative Theus. I will show you to your quarters." "Thank you," Elena said. "I look forward to working with the Council." Theus's big eyes looked at the human guards. Something like confusion crossed its face. "Your security detail seems unusual." "How so?" Elena asked. "They appear to be unarmed. This is most strange." Elena smiled. "They have everything they need." They walked through the station's main corridor. Other alien delegations were arriving too. Elena watched a group of snake-like creatures slither past. Each one was followed by robots carrying weapons that hummed with energy. A delegation of furry creatures that looked like giant wolves walked by next. Their guards wore armor that covered every inch of their bodies. Energy shields glowed around them. "The security checkpoint is ahead," Theus said. "All guards must surrender their weapons here. Council rules." Elena nodded. She had read about this. The Galactic Council took security very seriously. No weapons were allowed in the meeting areas. They reached a large archway filled with scanning devices. Alien guards were lined up, placing their weapons on tables. Elena saw energy cannons as big as her leg, swords that glowed with heat, shields that sparked with electricity. Some weapons looked like they could destroy a city. The Korath guard ahead of them placed an axe on the table. The weapon was so heavy that it made the metal table bend. Next, he put down a gun that looked like a small cannon. Then came grenades, knives, and things Elena couldn't even identify. The Veltar guard moved so fast that Elena almost missed it. In seconds, it had placed dozens of weapons on the table. Guns, blades, some kind of energy whip, and devices that made Elena's translator buzz with warnings. "Next!" called the security officer, a creature that looked like a walking crystal. Captain Chen stepped forward. The scanner beam passed over her body. It beeped once, twice, then went silent. "Please place your weapons on the table," the security officer said. "I don't have any," Chen said calmly. The crystal creature's face somehow showed confusion. "Please step through the scanner again." Chen walked through the archway once more. The same thing happened. Beep, beep, silence. "Your equipment appears to be malfunctioning," Theus said to the security officer. "Surely these humans have some kind of weapons." Marcus stepped forward next. Same result. No weapons detected. Then Aisha, Yuki, and David. All the same. The scanner found nothing. "This is most irregular," Theus muttered. "Perhaps your species uses weapons we cannot detect?" Elena watched other alien delegates whispering to each other. She could see their confusion. In their world, guards without weapons made no sense. "Our guards are properly equipped," Elena said. "Shall we continue?" They walked deeper into the station. Elena noticed how the other aliens looked at her team. Some seemed amused. Others looked confused. A few seemed almost worried, like they thought the humans might be hiding something dangerous. "Your quarters are in Section 7, Thais said as they walked. "The main meeting hall is in Section 3. Meals are served in the central plaza. Do your guards require special food?" "They eat the same things I do," Elena said. "And their sleeping arrangements?" "They'll be fine in standard rooms." Theis's bug eyes studied the human guards more closely. Elena could almost see it thinking. These humans were so different from other species. Most alien guards looked like they could tear apart a tank. The human guards looked like they could work in an office. "In the morning, there will be a security briefing," Theis said. "All guard units must attend. Will your personnel be joining?" "Of course," Elena said. They reached the human quarters. The rooms were simple but clean. Elena was pleased to see that the furniture could be adjusted for human size. "I must ask," This said, its voice careful. "Are your guards trained for combat? The galaxy can be dangerous." Elena looked at Captain Chen. The woman stood relaxed, hands at her sides, scanning the area with quiet eyes. She looked completely calm, like she was at home instead of on an alien station filled with creatures that could probably step on her. "Representative This," Elena said, "I can promise you that my security team is fully qualified for their job. But they have no weapons, no armor, no visible enhancements. They have everything they need," Elena repeated. After This left, Elena turned to her guards. "First impressions?" "They underestimate us," Chen said quietly. "That's good." "The station layout is complex," Marcus added. "Lots of blind spots." "Their weapons are impressive," Yuki said, "but they're clearly meant for show as much as function." "Most of their guards move like they've never been in a real fight," David observed. Elena nodded. This was going exactly as planned. Let the aliens think humans were weak. Let them believe that a species without claws, without natural armor, without built-in weapons, was helpless. They would learn soon enough how wrong they were. In the distance, Elena could hear the sounds of the station, alien voices in a dozen languages, the hum of advanced technology, the footsteps of creatures from across the galaxy. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Humanity was about to take its first steps onto the galactic stage, and Elena was confident that her guards would keep her safe, even if nobody else understood how. 3 weeks had passed since the humans arrived at the station. Elena sat in another long council meeting, listening to the Veltar and Korath argue about trade routes. The same argument they had been having for days. The meeting hall was enormous. Hundreds of alien delegates sat in circles around a central speaking area. The walls showed star maps and trade data. Elena could barely understand half of what was being discussed, even with her translator working perfectly. Behind her, Captain Chen and her team stood in their usual positions. They never seemed tired, even though these meetings could last for hours. Elena had learned to respect their patience. The other alien guards had started to relax around the humans. At first, they had watched Chen's team carefully. Now most of them ignored the humans completely. "The humans are harmless," Elena had overheard a Korath guard saying yesterday. "Look at them. No weapons, no armor, no claws. They probably couldn't hurt a cleaning robot." Elena had seen Chen smile slightly when she heard that. The captain never said anything, but Elena could tell she found these comments amusing. "Ambassador Vasquez," Representative Theis called out, "does humanity have an opinion on the mineral rights dispute?" Elena stood up. "We believe all parties should work together for a fair solution." It was a safe answer. Elena had learned that saying too much too early was a mistake. Better to listen and learn first. "How diplomatic," muttered Ambassador Krog from the hegemony of scales, his snake-like body coiled around his chair. "Do humans have any real opinions? Or do you just say nice words?" Elena kept her expression calm. We prefer to understand all sides before making judgments. Some of the aliens laughed. Elena could hear the word weak being whispered in several languages. She didn't mind. Let them think what they wanted. After the meeting, Elena walked back to her quarters with her security team. The station's corridors were busy as always. Different species went about their business, barely noticing the humans anymore. Status report, Elena said once they were in private. The station has 47 security cameras in the main areas, Yuki said. I've mapped most of them. There are blind spots in sections 8, 12, and 15. Guard rotations change every 8 hours, Marcus added. Most species follow predictable patterns. The Korath guards always stop at the food court. The Veltar guards check the same corridors in the same order. Combat abilities? Elena asked. Mixed, David answered. Some of them look dangerous, but most have never been in real fights. They rely too much on their weapons and technology. Elena nodded. What about their weaknesses? The Zephyrians are fragile, Chen said. Their crystal bodies look pretty, but they break easily. The Veltar are fast, but they panic when they can't use their speed. The Korath are strong, but slow to change direction. The snake people are interesting, Aisha added. They're flexible and quick, but they have trouble with vertical movement. They don't like fighting in small spaces. Elena was impressed. Her team had learned more about alien combat abilities in 3 weeks than the Council's own security files contained. Any threats we should worry about? She asked. Not from the guards, Chen said, but there's something else. I've been watching the station's security chief, Vorthak. Elena knew the name. Vorthak was a huge Korath with scars covering his gray hide. He had fought in dozens of battles across the galaxy. Other aliens respected him and feared him. What about him? Elena asked. He's been watching us, Chen said. Not openly, but I can tell. He's smart. Smarter than the others. He knows something doesn't add up. Should we be concerned? Maybe. He's the only one here who might figure out what we really are. Elena considered this. She had known this moment would come eventually. Some alien would start to ask the right questions. Keep monitoring the situation, she said, but don't change anything. We stick to the plan. The next morning, Elena attended another council meeting. This one was about territory disputes in the Outer Rim. Pirates had been attacking shipping lanes, and the council couldn't agree on how to respond. We should send the 4th Fleet, demanded General Zix from the Veltar. Crush the pirates completely. Too expensive, replied Councillor Mir from the Crystalline Union. We should negotiate with them instead. You cannot negotiate with criminals, hissed Ambassador Krog. They understand only strength. Elena listened carefully. This was important. The pirates weren't just stealing cargo. They were testing the Council's unity. If the Council looked weak, other groups might start causing trouble. During a break in the meeting, Elena noticed something interesting. Security Chief Vorthak was standing near the back of the hall, watching everything. His small eyes focused on different guard units throughout the room. When those eyes landed on the human guards, they stayed there longer than usual. Captain, Elena said quietly, we have an observer. Chen didn't turn around. I see him. He's been following us for the last 2 days. What do you think he wants? Answers. The question is whether we give him any. After the meeting, Elena was walking through the station's central plaza when Vorthak approached her. The massive Korath moved surprisingly quietly for something his size. Ambassador Vasquez, he said. His voice was deep and rough. May I speak with you? Of course, Security Chief, Elena replied. I have been observing your guards, Vorthak said directly. They are unusual. How so? They carry no weapons, yet they show no fear. They are always alert, always watching, but they do not seem concerned about threats. This puzzles me. Elena chose her words carefully. Humans handle security differently than other species. Yes, I have been studying human culture, Vorthak said. Very interesting. Your species has a remarkable history of conflict. We've had our share of wars, Elena admitted. Indeed. But what interests me most is how humans fight when they have no other choice, when they are cornered, outnumbered, outgunned. Your history shows that humans become most dangerous when they seem most helpless. Elena felt a chill. This alien was smarter than she had expected. History is just history, she said. We're here for peace. Of course, Vorthak said, but I wonder, if danger came to this station, how would your guards respond? They have no weapons. They wear no armor. What would they do? Elena looked at Captain Chen, who had moved closer during the conversation. The woman looked completely relaxed, but Elena could see the alertness in her eyes. They would do their job, Elena said simply. Vorthak's scarred face showed what might have been a smile. I believe you. That is what concerns me. He walked away, leaving Elena with more questions than answers. That evening, Elena called a private meeting with her security team. Vorthak suspects something, she said. He's been studying human military history. How much does he know? Chen asked. Enough to be worried. He understands that humans are dangerous when we have no other options. Should we request backup? Marcus asked. Elena thought about it. They could call for a ship from the human fleet, but that would send the wrong message to the Council. It would make humans look weak and scared. No, she decided. We continue as planned, but everyone needs to be extra careful. No more practice sessions where aliens might see. No more equipment that could raise questions. What if Vorthak tries to test us? Aisha asked. Then we show him exactly what he expects to see, Elena said. Helpless humans who need protection. Chen smiled grimly. That might be harder than it sounds. Elena knew she was right. Humans were natural fighters. They had evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, and eventually other humans. Humanity had survived by becoming adaptable, clever, and ruthlessly efficient when threatened. But the galaxy didn't know that yet. The aliens saw soft pink creatures with no natural weapons and assumed they were prey. Elena intended to keep it that way for as long as possible. Outside her window, she could see alien ships coming and going from the station, massive vessels with enough firepower to destroy planets. The galaxy was full of species that had conquered space through strength and technology. Humans had done it differently. They had conquered space by refusing to give up, by learning from every defeat, by turning every disadvantage into a weapon. Soon the galaxy would understand what that really meant. But not yet. The trouble started during what should have been a simple trade meeting. Elena sat in the council chamber, listening to the Veltar and the hegemony of Scales argue about mining rights in the Proxima system. Ambassador Veltar Jin spoke quickly, as his species always did. The Scales have violated our agreement. They are mining in sectors that belong to us. Ambassador Krog's long body coiled tighter around his chair. We mine only in unclaimed areas. The Veltar lie to hide their own failures. Elena had seen this argument before. Both species wanted the same valuable minerals. Both claimed they had legal rights to mine them. Neither wanted to share. The treaty clearly states, Jin continued. The treaty says nothing about... Krog interrupted. Back and forth they went. Elena noticed that other delegates were getting bored. Some were checking their data tablets. Others were whispering among themselves. Then everything changed. A young Veltar aide, barely more than a teenager, made a comment about scale mating habits. Elena's translator made the words sound innocent enough, but she could see the reaction on Krog's face. The snake-like ambassador's eyes went wide. His body straightened up like someone had hit him with electricity. Around the room, other scale delegates started hissing. What did you say? Krog's voice was deadly quiet. The young aide realized his mistake immediately. His face went pale. I didn't mean... You insult our breeding traditions! Krog stood up, his full 15-foot length towering over the chamber. You dare mock the sacred bonds of our people! Elena felt the temperature in the room change. What had been a boring trade dispute was turning into something much worse. "It was a mistake," Representative Theiss tried to say. The young one spoke without thinking. But it was too late. The scale guards were already moving. They raised their neural disruptor staffs, energy crackling along the metal. The Veltar guards responded instantly, drawing their plasma rifles. In seconds, the peaceful chamber turned into a war zone. 20 different species were shouting at once. Elena's translator buzzed with warnings as it tried to handle dozens of languages being screamed at the same time. Energy weapons powered up with threatening whines. A Korath guard stepped forward, his massive axe in his hands. "Stand down!" he roared. "No weapons in the chamber!" "Tell that to the scales!" a Veltar soldier shouted back. More guards from different species joined in. Some were trying to protect their delegates. Others looked like they wanted to start shooting just for fun. Elena could see finger tentacles on triggers, claws near weapon controls. This was exactly the kind of incident that could tear the Galactic Council apart. Elena looked around for her security team. Captain Chen was still standing behind her, looking almost bored. Marcus had somehow moved between Elena and the nearest plasma rifle without seeming to hurry. Aisha was scanning the room like she was counting something. Yuki had her hands in her pockets, which Elena now realized probably meant she was reaching for hidden equipment. David was watching the exits. None of them looked worried. "Should we take cover?" Elena whispered to Chen. "Not yet," the captain replied calmly. A Veltar guard swung his rifle toward the scale delegation. A scale warrior raised his staff in response. Energy weapons hummed as they charged up for firing. That's when Elena saw something that made her heart stop. The weapons were pointed at her section of the chamber. If shooting started, the human delegation would be right in the middle of it. The Veltar guard's finger started to squeeze his trigger. Marcus moved. Elena had never seen anything like it. Marcus didn't run or dive or shout. He just stepped forward, smooth as water, and somehow ended up standing between the rifle and Elena's chair. The movement looked so natural that it took Elena a moment to realize what had happened. The Veltar guard fired. The plasma bolt hit Marcus in the chest and nothing happened. Elena blinked. That was impossible. Plasma rifles could punch through metal armor. They should have burned a hole right through Marcus. Then she saw what had really happened. Marcus had something in his hand, a small device that glowed with the same energy as the plasma bolt. Somehow he had absorbed or redirected the shot. The Veltar guard stared at his weapon like it had broken. While everyone was watching Marcus, Aisha had moved too. She flowed around a charging Korath guard like she was dancing. Somehow, she ended up behind the massive warrior with her hand resting gently on his neck. The Korath stopped moving instantly. "What?" he rumbled, confusion in his voice. "Pressure point," Aisha said quietly. "You'll be fine in a few minutes." Elena watched Yuki pull a device from her pocket and pointed at the weapon detectors in the chamber. Suddenly, all the energy weapons in the room stopped working. Lights went out on rifles. Staffs stopped crackling. Even the security systems went quiet. "Electromagnetic pulse," Yuki explained to no one in particular. "Very small, very precise." David hadn't moved from his position, but now Elena could see what he was doing. He had sightlines to every entrance and exit. His hands hung loose at his sides, but his eyes were tracking every movement in the chamber. Captain Chen remained beside Elena, completely calm, as if armed aliens threatening her diplomat was just another day at the office. The entire thing had taken 17 seconds. The chamber fell silent. Everyone was staring at the human guards. "How?" The Veltar guard looked at his useless rifle. "What did you do?" The Korath warrior touched his neck where Aisha had touched him. Security Chief Vorthak was the first to speak. "Interesting," he said slowly. "Very interesting." Representative Thiss's crystal body was ringing like a bell with stress. "I do not understand. The humans appeared to have no weapons, no defensive systems." Elena stood up slowly. Around her, alien delegates were whispering to each other in worried tones. Gentlemen, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber, perhaps we should return to discussing mining rights? It was Krog who answered first. The Scale Ambassador looked at Marcus, who was calmly putting away whatever device he had used to stop the plasma bolt. Yes, Krog said carefully. Perhaps we should. The meeting continued, but everything had changed. Alien guards kept glancing nervously at the humans. Delegates whispered among themselves. Elena could hear words like impossible and how being translated by her device. When the session ended, Elena walked back to her quarters with her team. They moved through corridors full of aliens who now looked at them with very different expressions. Well, Elena said once they were alone, I think our secret is starting to come out. It was necessary, Chen replied. That situation was about to turn into a massacre. What exactly did you all do back there? Marcus held up a small device that looked like a piece of jewelry. Personal shield generator. It can absorb or redirect energy attacks for a few seconds. The electromagnetic pulse was built into my tablet, Yuki added. I've been preparing it since we arrived. The pressure point trick only works on species with similar nervous systems, Aisha explained. Lucky for us, most species have nerve clusters in similar places. Elena shook her head. And where did all this equipment come from? The scanners found nothing when we arrived. Chen smiled. Human technology is very small, and we've had 3 weeks to acquire what we needed from the station's own systems. You built weapons from station equipment? We adapted existing technology for defensive purposes, Chen corrected. Everything we used already existed on this station. We just put pieces together in ways the aliens hadn't thought of. Elena sat down heavily. How long before they figure out what you really are? Vorthak already suspects, David said. He was watching everything very carefully today. And the others? They're confused, Marcus said. They know something strange happened, but they can't understand what. Most species think in terms of big weapons and heavy armor. They don't understand that humans solve problems differently. Elena nodded. She was beginning to understand something important about her own species. Humans didn't just adapt to new environments, they turned those environments into weapons. What happens when they realize the truth? She asked. Chen considered this. Depends on how smart they are. Some will be afraid, some will be impressed, some will want to learn from us, and some will see us as a threat that needs to be eliminated, David added quietly. Elena looked out her window at the alien ships in the docking bay, massive vessels with enough firepower to destroy entire worlds. If the galaxy decided that humans were too dangerous to leave alone. We'll handle that when it happens, Chen said, reading her thoughts. For now, we just need to be ready for whatever comes next. Elena knew she was right. Today had been a test, and her people had passed it. But it had also revealed that humans were not the helpless creatures the galaxy thought they were. Tomorrow, things would be different. The aliens would be watching more carefully. They would be asking harder questions. Elena just hoped that when the truth finally came out, the galaxy would be ready for it. Because ready or not, the galaxy was about to learn what humans really were. Security Chief Vorthak sat in his office, staring at footage from yesterday's incident in the council chamber. He had watched the video 20 times, and it still didn't make sense. The humans had moved like they knew exactly what was going to happen. They had equipment that shouldn't exist. Most importantly, they had stopped a potential massacre without hurting anyone. That last part worried him the most. Vorthak had been a warrior for over 40 years. He had fought in dozens of battles across the galaxy. He knew what real fighters looked like. And yesterday, for just a few seconds, he had seen the human guards move like apex predators. But they had chosen not to kill. He pulled up the human cultural database that Ambassador Vasquez had given the Council. It was supposed to help aliens understand human customs and history. Vorthak had been reading it for days, and what he found disturbed him. Humans had been at war with everything for their entire history, not just each other, though their conflicts were brutal enough. They had fought their own planet. They had battled diseases, weather, wild animals, and natural disasters. They had turned their entire world into a battlefield and somehow won. But the cultural database showed something else too. Human entertainment was full of stories about their own species as monsters. Movies about humans hunting other humans. Books about human soldiers who could kill anything. Games where players pretended to be human warriors destroying entire armies. They seemed to enjoy imagining themselves as predators. Vorthak opened a file about human martial arts. What he read made his scarred hide crawl with unease. Humans had invented hundreds of ways to fight with just their bodies, styles focused on breaking bones, stopping hearts, damaging organs. Techniques designed specifically to kill other humans efficiently. Some of these fighting methods were thousands of years old. Humans had been perfecting the art of killing for longer than most species had been traveling between stars. Vorthak made a decision. He needed to see what the human guards did when they thought no one was watching. The station's security cameras covered most public areas, but Vorthak had access to maintenance cameras too. Cameras in corridors, service areas, even some private spaces. It wasn't legal to spy on diplomats, but Vorthak told himself this was about station security. He started watching the human guards during their off-duty hours. What he saw made him want to call for military backup. The humans trained constantly, not with weapons but with their bodies. In their quarters, they practiced movements that looked like deadly dances. They sparred with each other using techniques Vorthak had never seen before. He watched Marcus grab David in a hold that should have been impossible to escape from. David twisted somehow, and suddenly Marcus was on the ground. Then they switched positions and did it again. He watched Aisha practice kicks that moved faster than Vorthak's eyes could follow. She hit targets with precision that would make a sniper jealous. He watched Yuki assemble some kind of device from parts that looked like they came from the station's own systems. When she was done, she had built something that definitely wasn't in the original design plans. Most disturbing was Captain Chen. She didn't practice fighting like the others. Instead, she sat very still and seemed to think. But Vorthak could see her eyes moving, tracking invisible threats, calculating distances and angles. She was planning. Always planning. When David accidentally cut himself while preparing food, Vorthak watched Yuki treat the wound with medical supplies that had appeared from nowhere. They carried no visible medical kits, yet somehow they had advanced trauma equipment hidden on their bodies. But the moment that made Vorthak's blood freeze was when Marcus noticed one of the security cameras. The human looked directly into it, smiled, and gave a small wave. Then he said something to the others in a human dialect that the translator couldn't understand. They all laughed. They knew they were being watched. They knew the aliens thought they were harmless. And they found it funny. Vorthak realized he needed more information. He called up the complete human military database using his security clearance to access classified files. What he found was a nightmare. Humans had fought wars on every type of terrain imaginable. Underwater battles, combat in zero gravity, fighting in acid rain and poisonous atmospheres. They had learned to kill in environments that would destroy most other species. But it wasn't just where they fought, it was how they fought. Humans used everything as weapons: rocks, sticks, chemicals, fire, even their own blood. They turned farming tools into instruments of death. They made bombs from household supplies. When they ran out of traditional weapons, they used their bodies. When they were outnumbered, they used traps and tricks. When they were outgunned, they disappeared and struck from the shadows. Most terrifying of all, they learned from every defeat. Human military history was full of battles where they lost, studied what went wrong, and came back stronger. They turned every failure into a lesson for future victory. Vorthak found records of human conflicts where they had been losing badly, seemingly on the verge of complete defeat. Then something would change. A new strategy, a new weapon, a new way of thinking about the problem. And suddenly the humans would start winning. They never gave up. Ever. Vorthak was so absorbed in his research that he almost didn't notice when his office door chimed. He looked up to see Captain Chen standing in his doorway. "Security Chief Vorthak?" she said politely. "May I come in?" Vorthak's combat instincts screamed danger, but Chen looked completely harmless. She was small compared to him, unarmed, alone. Nothing about her seemed threatening, except for her eyes. Her eyes were the eyes of a predator. "Of course, Captain," Vorthak said, gesturing to a chair. Chen sat down with fluid grace. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "Just routine security reviews," Vorthak said, closing the human military files on his screen. "I wanted to thank you," Chen said. "Thank me?" "Yesterday's incident could have been much worse. Your quick response helped prevent serious violence." Vorthak studied the human woman carefully. She was being polite, even friendly, but there was something else in her manner, something that reminded him of the calm before a storm. "Your team's response was impressive," Vorthak said carefully. "We do our best to protect Ambassador Vasquez." "Indeed. Your methods are quite unusual." Chen smiled. "Humans approach security differently than most species. So I have noticed. I have been studying human culture and history. Very fascinating." "What have you learned?" Vorthak decided to be direct. "That humans are not what they appear to be." "In what way?" "You appear to be a peaceful species, weak perhaps, harmless, but your history suggests otherwise." Chen's smile never wavered. "History is complex. Humans have had many conflicts, yes, but we've also built amazing things. Art, music, literature. We've explored space, cured diseases, created beauty. You have also perfected the art of warfare. When necessary, yes. Your species seems to excel at violence." Chen tilted her head slightly. "Chief Vorthak, humans excel at survival. Sometimes that requires violence, sometimes it requires peace. We adapt to whatever the situation needs." "And what does this situation need?" "Right now, it needs humans and aliens to work together, to learn from each other, to build something better than what we had before." Vorthak leaned back in his chair. "And if that cooperation fails, if someone decides that humans are too dangerous to trust?" Chen's expression didn't change, but something in the air seemed to shift. "Then we would defend ourselves." 4 guards against an entire galaxy? "Chief Vorthak," Chen said quietly, "you've been studying human history. You tell me, how well has it worked out for people who underestimated us?" The question hung in the air between them. Vorthak thought about everything he had learned. Human wars where a few soldiers had held off armies. Human explorers who had survived in places that should have killed them. Human inventors who had turned impossible problems into simple solutions. Humans who never, ever gave up. "I see your point," Vorthak said finally. Chen stood up. "I hope we can continue to work together, Chief. I think humans and the galaxy have a lot to offer each other." She walked to the door, then paused. "Oh, and Chief? If you're going to keep watching us train, you might want to use the camera in Corridor 7G. It has a better angle." Then she was gone, leaving Vorthak alone with the realization that the humans had known about his surveillance all along. He pulled up the feed from Corridor 7G. As promised, it had a perfect view of an area where the humans practiced their deadly arts. Vorthak made a decision. He opened a secure communication channel to his superiors in the Korath military. "This is Security Chief Vorthak," he said when the connection opened. "I need to file a priority report about the human delegation." "What is the nature of the threat?" asked the voice on the other end. Vorthak looked at his screen, where human guards were practicing movements that could kill in seconds. They looked so harmless, so weak, so helpless. "I'm not sure there is a threat," he said slowly. "But we need to be very, very careful not to create one." He ended the transmission and sat back in his chair. Tomorrow he would have to brief the council on his findings. He would have to explain that humanity was not the helpless species they appeared to be. The question was whether the galaxy would be wise enough to listen. The terrorist attack came during the largest council meeting of the year. Every member species was present. Elena sat with delegates from across the galaxy, discussing new trade agreements. It was supposed to be a celebration of galactic unity. The first explosion shook the entire station. Emergency lights flashed red as the main power grid failed. Elena's translator buzzed with warnings and emergency broadcasts in dozens of languages. Through the chaos, she heard Security Chief Vorthak's voice over the station's speakers. "All delegates remain in your seats. Security teams to positions. This is not a drill." But Elena could see that it was already too late. Armed figures in black armor were flooding into the chamber through blast holes they had blown in the walls. Their weapons were military-grade, pulse rifles, plasma cannons, things that could level buildings. Elena counted quickly. 20 attackers, maybe more, each one armed with enough firepower to wipe out half the council. "Separatists from the Outer Rim," she heard Representative Thiss whisper. The crystal being's body was ringing with fear. "They want to destroy the council." The lead terrorist, a massive creature wearing full combat armor, stepped into the center of the chamber. His voice boomed through speakers built into his helmet. "Citizens of the galaxy," he shouted, "today we free you from the corruption of the Galactic Council. Today we return power to individual worlds." Energy bolts filled the air as the terrorists fired warning shots. Alien delegates dove for cover behind their chairs. Elena could see several council members bleeding from shrapnel wounds. The station's security guards tried to respond, but they were caught completely off guard. Several were down within the first few seconds. Those still standing were pinned behind inadequate cover, outgunned and outmaneuvered. Elena looked around for her security team. Captain Chen was still standing behind her chair, looking almost bored. Marcus had moved slightly to Elena's left, putting himself between her and the nearest terrorist. Aisha was scanning the room with calm eyes. Yuki had her hands in her pockets again. David was watching the exits. None of them looked worried. "Shouldn't we take cover?" Elena whispered to Chen. "Not yet, ma'am," the captain replied quietly. A terrorist with a plasma cannon stepped forward, aiming his weapon at a group of wounded delegates. "The old order ends today." Representative Thiss, bleeding from a cut on his crystal face, turned to Elena. "Your guards!" he whispered urgently. "They need weapons!" Elena watched the terrorist's finger move toward the trigger. In a few seconds, half the council's leadership would be dead. She made her decision. "Captain Chen," she said clearly. "Yes, ma'am." "You are cleared to engage." What happened next took 47 seconds, though later every alien witness would swear it felt like both an eternity and an instant. The human guards didn't charge. They didn't shout. They didn't take cover. They simply stepped forward like they were walking through their own home. Marcus approached the nearest terrorist, the massive leader with armor that could stop anti-tank rounds. The terrorist turned his plasma cannon toward the small human. Marcus looked up at the armored giant almost casually, reached up with both hands, and did something to the terrorist's neck that made the huge creature drop like a stone. The terrorist hit the ground unconscious, his weapon clattering away harmlessly. Elena blinked. The terrorist was 3 times Marcus's size and covered in military armor, but Marcus had dropped him like he was made of paper. Aisha was moving through a crossfire of energy beams like she was swimming. Laser bolts and plasma bursts filled the air around her, but none of them seemed to touch her. She flowed between the attacks with impossible grace, reaching 2 more terrorists in seconds. Elena watched Aisha touch one terrorist on the shoulder. The armored figure froze mid-shot, then collapsed. She pressed her hand against another terrorist's chest plate. And somehow the energy pack on his weapon overloaded, sending sparks flying. Both terrorists went down without being seriously hurt. Yuki had appeared behind the terrorist leader as if she had teleported. The leader spun around, raising a weapon that could have vaporized her. Yuki smiled and placed her fingertips on the weapon's barrel. The gun's energy discharge went harmlessly into the air while Yuki stepped inside the leader's guard. Elena couldn't see exactly what she did next, but the terrorist leader made a strange, choking sound and fell forward. David was coordinating everything from his position near the wall. Elena could see him making hand signals to the other guards. Quick, precise movements that were clearly military, but unlike any military code she had ever seen. When 3 terrorists tried to flank his team, David intercepted them alone. He moved with a flowing economy of motion that turned their own momentum against them. One terrorist charged him with an energy sword. David sidestepped and somehow used the attacker's own weapon to disable his armor. The terrorist tripped over his own feet and didn't get up. Captain Chen remained beside Elena throughout the entire fight, calm and ready for whatever came next. In 47 seconds, 20 armed terrorists were unconscious, disarmed, or fleeing through the blast holes they had made. Not one human guard was injured. Not one alien delegate was harmed. The human guards returned to their positions around Elena as if nothing had happened. The chamber fell into absolute silence. Elena could hear her own heartbeat. Around the room, alien delegates were slowly emerging from cover, staring at the unconscious terrorists scattered across the floor. Finally, Security Chief Vorthak spoke. His voice was barely a whisper. "Why didn't you arm them?" Elena looked at the disabled terrorists. She looked at her security team, who stood relaxed and ready for whatever might happen next. She looked around the chamber at alien faces that now showed not condescension, but something approaching awe. "Chief Vorthak," she said quietly, "we didn't arm them because they don't need weapons." She paused, making eye contact with delegates from across the galaxy. "Humans aren't dangerous because of what we carry. We're dangerous because of what we are." Captain Chen stepped forward. "Ma'am, station sensors are picking up more terrorist ships approaching. Estimate 12 minutes to contact." Elena nodded, then turned to the council. "Representative Thiss, I believe you were about to vote on humanity's application for full council membership." Thiss looked at the unconscious terrorists, looked at the human guards who were already preparing defensive positions with calm efficiency, and realized that humanity's membership had never really been in question. "The motion passes unanimously," he said, without bothering to call for a vote. Elena smiled. "Thank you. Now, about those incoming ships." Marcus was checking the terrorists' equipment, looking for intelligence about their plans. Aisha was treating wounded aliens with medical supplies that had somehow appeared from her pockets. Yuki was connecting devices to the station's security systems, preparing countermeasures Elena couldn't even understand. David was positioning himself where he could see every entrance while coordinating with station security. Security Chief Vorthak approached Elena carefully. "Ambassador, may I ask what your guards really are?" Elena thought about the question. How could she explain that humans had evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day? That they had survived by becoming the most adaptable, most persistent, most dangerous species their planet had ever produced? How could she explain that humans had conquered space not through superior technology or natural advantages, but by refusing to give up, by learning from every defeat, by turning every disadvantage into a weapon? "They're soldiers, Chief Vorthak," she said simply. "Human soldiers." "But they look so—" Vorthak gestured helplessly. "Harmless?" Elena finished. "Yes. That's the point. Humans learned long ago that the most dangerous predator is the one that doesn't look dangerous." She looked around the chamber one more time. In a galaxy full of species with claws, venom, natural armor, and psychic abilities, humans evolved something different. We evolved the ability to turn anything into a weapon: our environment, our tools, our own bodies. Captain Chen's voice interrupted them. "Ma'am, incoming ships are moving to attack formation." "Recommendations, Captain?" Chen looked at the tactical display on her tablet. "Station defenses are adequate. But those ships have military-grade weapons. We should evacuate non-essential personnel." Elena shook her head. "No evacuations." This is the Galactic Council. We don't run. She turned to address the entire chamber. Delegates, you are about to see why humans don't need to carry weapons to be effective guards. Over the next hour, Elena watched her security team work with station personnel to coordinate the defense. They didn't take command, they simply made suggestions that somehow turned into incredibly effective strategies. Marcus worked with the Korath engineers to modify the station's shields. Aisha helped Veltar pilots plan attack patterns that used their speed more effectively. Yuki showed the Zephyrian technicians how to boost their sensor arrays beyond normal limits. David coordinated communications between species that had never worked together before. When the terrorist ships attacked, they found a station that was ready for them. The defense was perfect, coordinated, devastating. The attacking ships were disabled or driven off within minutes. Not because humans had taken over, but because they had helped everyone else become better at what they already did. Afterwards, as damaged ships limped away from the station, Elena received a priority message from Earth. Her superiors wanted to know how the first diplomatic mission had gone. Elena looked at the alien delegates who were now treating her guards with deep respect. She looked at Security Chief Vorthak, who was asking Captain Chen about human military training. She looked at Representative Thys, who was requesting cultural exchange programs with Earth. Mission accomplished, she transmitted back to Earth. 6 months later, human military advisors were training Council security forces in what became known as Earth Combat Doctrine. The waiting list for training was 2 years long. The Galactic Council's first contact protocols were updated to include a new classification. Evolutionary Apex Predator. Recommend immediate diplomatic integration. Elena Vasquez was appointed to the Council's inner circle, the first human to hold such a position. Her security detail remained unarmed. But the galaxy finally understood what that really meant. Humans didn't need weapons because humans were weapons. They had evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day, and they had not just survived, but thrived by becoming the most dangerous thing their planet had ever produced. And now they were part of the galaxy. The universe was about to become a much more interesting place.